You know, when we talk about attraction, especially the kind that creates lasting interest, most people jump straight to the surface looks, charm, maybe even a few polished lines. But if you strip all that back, if you really want to understand what holds someone's attention, particularly a man's, it often comes down to something much quieter, much deeper confidence. And I don't mean the kind of confidence that announces itself with fanfare. I'm not talking about walking into a room and needing everyone to know you've arrived. I'm talking about that subtle, grounded kind of confidence that doesn't need to shout because it's already felt. There's something incredibly compelling about a woman who's comfortable in her own skin. A woman who doesn't constantly second-guess herself, who doesn't need every room she walks into to validate her. You can see it in the way she holds herself. It's in the way she doesn't rush to fill silence, the way she doesn't apologize for having an opinion, the way she doesn't pretend to be someone else just to keep someone's interest. That quiet confidence, it creates curiosity. It makes people lean in. And here's the subtle part. A lot of people confuse confidence with arrogance or bravado. They think it's about having all the answers, never being vulnerable, or always being in control. But true confidence actually has nothing to prove. It's not rigid, it's not performative. In fact, some of the most confident women I've ever met are the ones who can say I don't know, or that made me nervous, or that's not for me, without any sense of insecurity. There's strength in that level of honesty. It tells the world, I trust myself enough not to need approval for everything I do or say. Think about it. When a man meets a woman who doesn't bend herself into a version she thinks he wants, it sends a message. It says, I'm not auditioning for a role in your life. I'm here to connect, not perform. That's magnetic. And it's rare, because most people, men and women alike, are walking around trying to be liked. We edit ourselves, we downplay what we care about, we hesitate to show too much in case it scares someone off. But the moment you stop doing that, the moment you simply show up as you are, you create a different kind of energy. It's grounded, it's calm, and that energy tells someone, I'm not going to chase you, I don't need to convince you, I know who I am. That kind of energy can be incredibly attractive to the right man, especially a man who's also grounded in himself. Because, here's the truth, people who are emotionally mature aren't looking for someone to complete them. They're looking for someone to stand beside them, and that only happens when both people feel whole on their own. A confident woman isn't intimidating to that kind of man. She's inspiring. She elevates the room she's in. She doesn't make herself small to be more digestible. She stands tall, even when she's quiet. And let's talk for a moment about the moments when confidence is tested, when things go wrong. That's when you really see where someone's grounded, because it's easy to feel confident when everything's going your way. But how do you react when someone doesn't text back right away, when the date goes cold, when a guy seems interested and then disappears? Do you spiral into self-doubt? Do you start wondering what you did wrong? Or do you remind yourself, his inconsistency doesn't change my value? That right there, that inner dialogue, is where confidence lives, not in the big moments, but in the quiet ones. The ones no one sees. You want to be the kind of woman who, when a man steps into your world, he senses that you're already complete. That being with him would be extra asterisk, not essential. Because the truth is, the right guy doesn't want to rescue you. He wants to join you. He doesn't want to feel like your happiness is in his hands. He wants to enhance it. And when you bring that subtle, steady kind of confidence to the table, it sets the tone for everything else. Men aren't drawn to neediness, They're drawn to energy that feels self-sustained, not cold, not distant, but whole. And when you speak, when you express yourself, when you say no to what doesn't feel right for you, you're showing him something powerful, that you are your own anchor, that your life already has richness, and if he's lucky, he might get to be part of it. So if you're wondering what draws someone in and keeps them interested, start there. Not with the surface, not with the tactics. Start with the energy of a woman who knows she has nothing to prove and everything to offer. If there's one thing that often gets overlooked when we talk about attraction, especially in the early stages of dating, it's the incredible power of emotional presence. And I don't mean being dramatic or overly expressive. I'm talking about something far more subtle, something most people miss. The energy you bring into a moment, your openness, your attunement, and your willingness to be right there with someone instead of being in your own head trying to control how you're coming across. That kind of presence is rare, and it's magnetic. See, a lot of people are so focused on impressing someone or appearing a certain way that they're not actually in the moment. They're busy planning their next line, overthinking how they're being perceived, wondering if they're being too much or not enough. But when you meet someone who is truly present with you, when they're listening not just to respond, but to connect, you feel it. And for a man, when he senses that kind of emotional availability, it draws him in a way that goes deeper than anything surface level ever could. Now, let's be clear, being emotionally present doesn't mean spilling your heart out to a stranger. It's not about putting all your vulnerabilities on the table right away. It's about being real. It's about responding with honesty, reacting with authenticity, and allowing yourself to feel without constantly editing or performing. When you're in tune with your emotions and you're not afraid to express them in a grounded way, it signals to the person in front of you that you're connected to yourself. And when you're connected to yourself, it makes it easier for someone else to connect to you. That's what feminine receptivity really is. It's not about waiting passively or being submissive. It's about openness. It's about creating space for someone to step into, rather than rushing to fill the space with your own expectations or outcomes. When a man senses that you're not trying to direct every part of the interaction, that you're allowing room for him to show up and be part of something organic, it changes the entire dynamic. It invites a different energy, one of partnership rather than pursuit. Too often, people go into dating with this rigid framework in their minds. I have to say this, I have to act like that, I have to make him see my value. But here's the twist. When you stop trying to prove anything and instead show up emotionally grounded and present, you naturally exude value. You don't have to sell yourself, you don't have to chase, the connection does the work for you. There's also something deeply attractive about someone who can sit in an emotionally charged moment and not run from it. You know, those moments, the ones where something vulnerable is said, or there's tension, or maybe something just feels emotionally heavy. A woman who's comfortable enough to stay present in that space, who doesn't deflect with a joke or change the subject too quickly, she creates safety. And safety is not talked about enough when it comes to attraction, but it matters, because a man will open up emotionally only when he feels that the space you create together can hold his truth. So when you're present, when you're receptive, when you're emotionally attuned, it gives him permission to lower his guard too. Suddenly, it's not just surface-level conversation. Suddenly, there's depth. And here's the thing. Depth is what makes someone stay. Chemistry might spark the initial connection, but it's the emotional space between you, that creates the bond. Being emotionally present also means you're not living in the past or future during the interaction. You're not preoccupied with what happened in your last relationship or worried about whether this one is going somewhere. You're here, with him, responding to him, not reacting to your history or projecting your hopes. And that makes you powerful in the most beautiful way. Because there's nothing more compelling than someone who's emotionally available in a calm, steady way, not needy, not chaotic, just available. And don't underestimate the energy that brings into a room. It's felt. It's not what you say. It's the way you make someone feel. When you show up with that emotional openness, that warm presence, it's like a quiet signal that says, I'm here, I'm real, and I'm willing to connect if you are. That level of vulnerability, held with confidence, is what invites someone into something more meaningful. It's the difference between performance and connection, between being looked at and being truly seen. Because any man who's worth your time isn't just looking for someone who looks good beside him. He's looking for someone who feels good to be around. Someone whose energy makes him feel more like himself. And when you show up with emotional presence, you don't just make an impression, you create a moment. And it's moments that people remember, that they want more of, that they come back for. So if you want to stand out, don't focus on being perfect. Focus on being present. One of the most underrated qualities that draws people in, especially when we're talking about attraction, is playfulness. And I'm not just talking about being funny or cracking jokes, though humor can definitely be part of it. I mean that lightness, that spark, that energy that makes people feel relaxed around you. It's subtle, but it's powerful. It's the ability to take a moment that might otherwise be heavy, awkward, or tense, and infuse it with a bit of levity, a bit of fun. And when a man experiences that kind of energy with you, it becomes something he doesn't want to stop being around. We've all had those conversations that feel like interviews: question, answer, polite nod, and repeat. It's safe, sure, but it doesn't leave a mark. Now compare that to when someone makes a clever comment that catches you off guard, or playfully challenges something you said, or teases you in a way that makes you feel both seen and enjoyed. That moment, that's when connection starts to feel electric instead of just polite. And often, that electricity isn't about sexual chemistry right away. It's about feeling alive in someone's company. That's what playfulness does. It invites both of you to stop taking yourselves so seriously and actually enjoy each other's company without a filter. What people don't realize is that playfulness isn't about being the loudest in the room or constantly trying to entertain. In fact, the most attractive kind of playfulness is subtle. It's in the glint in your eye when you say something cheeky. It's the way you respond with a playful challenge when he tries to impress you. It's knowing how to keep things light even when the topic is serious, just by how you hold the space. That kind of energy makes a man feel like he's with someone who's not just mentally sharp, but emotionally agile. Someone who knows how to move with the moment instead of trying to control it. And that's what makes you unforgettable, because most people are so concerned with being enough, interesting enough, impressive enough, sexy enough, that they forget to actually have fun. And what could be more attractive than someone who's genuinely enjoying herself? A woman who laughs at herself, who doesn't need the moment to be perfect, who can throw out a line that makes someone laugh and feel like he's known her forever. That's disarming in the best way. It breaks down walls. It speeds up intimacy. It lets people relax into who they really are around you. Here's the interesting thing. When a woman is playful in her energy, it also signals confidence. Not in a loud or showy way, but in the sense that she's not afraid to be spontaneous, to take a little risk in the moment, to maybe say the thing that's a little cheeky, a little bold. That kind of light teasing or quick wit shows that she's not walking on eggshells. She's not overthinking every word. She's present enough and confident enough to trust her instincts. And that creates an environment where the guy doesn't feel like he has to perform either. He feels like he can loosen up, lean in, and just enjoy being with you. Think about how rare that is. How often do we meet people who truly let their guard down without it being a defense mechanism or an act? When you're playful, it's like you're saying, I don't need this to be serious, to be real. That's the key. You can be genuine without being heavy. You can connect deeply without needing everything to be intense. And the irony is, when you have that light touch, when you bring that humor and that spark, it often leads to deeper conversations. Because people feel safe enough to open up around you. It's also worth saying playfulness doesn't mean being unserious about your standards or what you want. You can absolutely have boundaries and be playful. In fact, the combination of the two is irresistible. A woman who knows who she is, who knows what she's looking for, but can express herself with warmth and humor. That's incredibly rare. That's the woman who leaves a guy thinking about her after the date, wondering, how do I get more of that? And here's a beautiful part of it. You don't need to be a natural comedian to do this. You just need to give yourself permission to be light, to smile a little more in the moment, to not take everything so seriously, to allow yourself to respond in ways that are more human and less rehearsed. When something goes wrong on a date, laugh about it. When he says something ridiculous, call him out on it with a grin. When there's awkward silence, don't fill it with panic, fill it with a joke, or a knowing look, or a question that shifts the energy. That's what creates chemistry, the shared experience of enjoyment, and when a man experiences that with you, you become more than just another person he's dating. You become the moment he wants to come back to. You become the energy that breaks up the monotony of his day. You become the reason he smiles when he thinks of you. So if you want to create that spark, that feeling that he can't quite explain but keeps thinking about, don't forget to bring the fun. One of the most attractive things about a woman, something that consistently stands out and stays with a man long after the moment has passed, is when she has her own sense of direction, her own rhythm, her own life that's full, rich, and not waiting for someone else to come along and complete it. There's this beautiful magnetic energy that radiates from a woman who's passionate about something, whether it's her career, a creative pursuit, a cause, or simply the way she chooses to live every day with intention. It's not about being busy or having everything figured out. It's about knowing what lights you up and letting that be felt in how you move through the world. You can feel the difference when you meet someone like that. There's a calm confidence in her because her identity isn't wrapped up in being chosen or validated by someone else. She's not sitting around waiting to be picked. She's choosing, she's living, and when a man comes into her life, he's not stepping into a void. He's stepping into something already vibrant and whole. That's incredibly appealing, especially to the kind of man who respects and values a real connection. Because he's not being asked to build her up or give her purpose. He's being invited into something that already has meaning. What people sometimes miss is that this kind of energy isn't loud. It's not about being hyper, independent, or saying, I don't need anyone. It's not about being closed off. It's actually incredibly warm, incredibly inviting. It just doesn't chase. It doesn't attach quickly out of fear. It doesn't try to force a connection, because it's grounded in the truth that life is already meaningful, with or without someone beside you. That's the kind of presence that makes a man stop and think, there's something different here, because it's not desperate. It's not needy. It's not asking, do you like me? Instead, it says, this is who I am. This is the life I've built. If you want to be a part of it, amazing. If not, I'll keep going. And that posture, subtle but deeply selfish, changes the entire dynamic of attraction. It creates space for respect, for pursuit, for a man to actually step up and show that he brings value too. When a woman has her own passions, when she's engaged in something beyond the relationship itself, she also becomes more interesting. She has things to talk about, stories to share, ideas to bounce around, and a man finds himself curious, not just about her, but about the world she lives in. He wants to know what excites her, what keeps her up at night in the best way, what she's building, what she's dreaming about. Because she's not just there to support his journey, she's clearly on her own. And that makes everything more dynamic. The relationship isn't a destination. It's a meeting of two people who are already on their way somewhere. And here's where it gets really powerful. When you are living a life you love, you don't make decisions out of scarcity. You're not clinging to the first person who shows interest, you're discerning. You're able to ask yourself, does this person actually fit in the life I've created? Do they add to it? Do they make it better? You're not rushing to make something work that clearly doesn't. That energy of discernment, of having standards not as a test, but as a reflection of your self-worth, that's what keeps you from settling. And when a man senses that you won't settle just to avoid being alone, it actually deepens his respect for you. He knows he has to show up with real substance, not just surface-level charm. This doesn't mean you never feel lonely. It doesn't mean you're immune to wanting connection. Of course you are. Human beings are wired for it. But when your fulfillment doesn't hinge on another person's attention, that changes everything. It means you're choosing someone because you want them, not because you need them. And that distinction is what makes you powerful in love, because you're coming from a place of abundance, not lack. Now, I've seen it time and time again. A woman who's lit up by her life draws people in. Men are naturally intrigued by someone who's hard to pin down because she's got things going on, things she's passionate about, things she values outside of the relationship. And when a man knows he's not your entire world, but that he can be a meaningful part of it, it actually deepens his investment. He wants to earn his place in that world, not just be handed it. So, if you're wondering how to create attraction that lasts, not just that quick spark, but the kind that grows, look at the life you're building. Does it make you proud? Does it reflect who you really are? Are you waking up excited about something, even something small? Because when you are, that energy spills into every interaction. It makes you more vibrant, more grounded, and far more compelling than any script or strategy ever could. So don't just focus on being chosen, focus on becoming someone who chooses herself every single day.